Arun sir, shall we start?
Yes, sir, we can start.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Good afternoon. Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, all, to the next session, Applications in Healthcare, AI-Driven Diagnostics and Synthetic Data. I welcome our speaker, Dr. Arun Kumar, founder, Deep Medicine Labs, Chennai. Dr. Arun Kumar is a distinguished medical doctor with multidisciplinary expertise spanning family medicine, public health, and epidemiology, as well as clinical data science and artificial intelligence. He specializes in analyzing and interpreting unstructured clinical data encompassing text, voice, and images, and has extensive medical experience in clinical validation of drugs, devices, diagnostics, and informatics. With end-to-end knowledge of research and development, Dr. Kumar is adept at clinical trials, regulatory compliance, and translating bench-to-bedside innovations. He is also a biodesign specialist focusing on medical devices, robotics, wearables, and smart technologies for translational research. Additionally, he excels in the development and deployment of advanced clinical decision support systems with a particular focus on telepsychiatry, computational psychiatry, and AI applications in mental health. I welcome you, sir, and handing over the session to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yes, ma'am. So, how about my screen? Is it visible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir,
sir, it's
visible.
visible.
Okay. So, good afternoon, all. So, today we'll be having a master class on applications in healthcare, AI-driven diagnostics, and synthetic data. So, I'll be taking from a very different perspective. I'll be taking the perspective of the healthcare domain, more from what the medical professionals expect, how the regulatory bodies like CDSCO, FDA expect. So from a technical aspect, there will be less here, but it will be more on the applicable AI in healthcare. So these are the objectives. So the next 90 minutes we'll be discussing on the mental models for problem solving and decision making in AI in healthcare, and multimodal data analytics in clinical data science. And I'll be giving a brief of CDSS. The core of AI in healthcare is CDSS, the clinical decision support system. And finally, the regulatory pathways relevant to AI, mainly for the US market, I'll cover because most of the all the regulatory aspects standards the US follows, that's pretty uniform in other countries as well. So I'll be taking from the US mass market perspective. So before that, I would like to start with a small game. I'm encouraging people to participate in this. A very simple one. Can anyone tell me what? There are two words in this. Word one, word two. Forms one. There are two parts of the same word. Any idea? Hello? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Yes,
So
sir.
can you guess this word? There are two words to this. Okay, I'll give the first word. From the remaining ones, you're going to guess. This is big data. So big, the dinosaur is big, and this is data. This is big data. So this one, the second word.
So blockchain.
No, ma'am. But think very simple stuff, not blockchain. Related to data. The left side is data. The what is the right hand?
We are just going to analyze the data.
No, this is data warehouse. This one, this is the easiest.
From beginning until I won't do. You can go with your class teacher. So far you have slept out. From beginning I won't do.
Sir,
From beginning I won't do. Whatever it may be. So far where you went? What you done?
Sir, I
I have a number of
mute your,
so you have so much work in these past reasons. You have so much works, right? That's why you didn't get the signature, right?
Tangarasan, sir.
Whatever it may be, don't tell these kind of stories and all to me. Okay, you can go and meet your teacher.
Yes,
I won't put
data
signature.
analytics. That's right.
Next, huh? You can leave.
Okay. So data analytics, fine. No, it's not data analytics, it's data scientist. What about this? Anyone? Confusion matrix. This one, easiest. For people typing. Okay. What about this? Okay, this is deep learning. What about this, the easiest?
Machine learning.
Machine learning, that's right. Thank you so much for answered it. Okay, what about this? This is F1 score. What about this? What is this? Neural networks.
Okay.
This? This one?
Random forest.
Random forest, that's right. This one?
Decision tree.
Decision tree, perfect. Fine. So now let's get into the session. So AI in healthcare is all about finding connections and patterns in clinical data and making use of it to solve a problem. So one of the major challenges that people outside healthcare don't understand is that the problem statement, most of the things which the tech people see as a problem statement, it's not a problem statement in healthcare at all because we're used to it. So some of the problem statements that we have are very, very simple, rudimentary. Some basic things are what we're actually struggling with. So these are the questions you need to ask when you start with AI in healthcare. Am I solving the right problem? Am I understanding the problem right? Is it a relevant? The information that I have regarding the problem, is it relevant? And finally, am I aware of all the variables in the system? So today we'll be looking at the mental models aspect of applicable AI in healthcare. So now I'm going to take you through a different perspective. So let us consider AI in healthcare as a game. So every game will have a playing field, it will have levels, it will have players, it will have rules, and then it will have the stakeholders, okay, resources and rules. So here in AI in healthcare, game field is the healthcare domain. The levels are from concepts to products and solutions. The players are the stakeholders, and we have data as the primary resource, and we have the rules that are defined by the FDA and other relevant agencies. So AI in healthcare, why AI in healthcare is completely different is we are forced to play by the rules defined by the FDA. Now let us come to the game field. So healthcare, we have major 4 aspects of it: the promotion part of it, prevention part of it, treatment, and the recovery part of it. Any innovation in AI can fit into anywhere in this spectrum. So this is the prognosis. The other aspect of AI in healthcare is either you can work on the prognosis part of it, or the prediction part of it, or the diagnosis part of it, or the treatment part of it. Now the levels of this game is, these are the 3 major levels. The first level is where you identify whether an AI is needed in healthcare, right? Most of the times we don't need them because the certain system is better as it is left. Okay, as they are, it's better that we have them as they are. When you try to change it, try to change the variables, it will have a lot of consequences. First thing, you should identify this need. Second thing, you should invent, and then you should implement. Okay, so there is a clinical. So here you identify the need, come with a disruptive technology, then move into a viable business model. So in level 1, we need to have a need exploration or a strategic focus and a need statement development, where we are trying to understand the particular problem statement that can be solved with AI. Is there a definite need to it? And then we need to look into the disease state fundamentals. What are these existing solutions? What are the who are all the stakeholder analysis, the market analysis, and finally you do a need selection. And once you identify the needs, you move into the ideation and concept selection and work on the intellectual property, regulatory basics, reimbursement, business models, and the concept exploration, and final concept selection. And finally, the implementation aspect is where the business part of it. You need to have R&D strategy, clinical strategy, IP, regulatory, quality management, insurance, marketing, sales distribution, and the business strategy. And the final part of it is where how do you approach people for funding? Who will fund your project? Who will fund your AI related? Maybe if it's going to be a startup, or it's going to be a project, or it's going to be a small scale internship or thesis. It all depends on how you are going to position yourself. So for which you need to be clear with the funding approaches. So I quickly recall we have in AI, the game field is the healthcare domain, and we have the levels. These are the levels, and these are the sub levels of it. Any questions so far? I take that as a no, and this is how the pathway looks like. So you have the concept generation, the concept screening, and final concept, and then initial concept selection, viable concept, then leading concept, and finally final concepts comes through. So how do we look at the viability? You'll find a lot of healthcare startups working with AI, but then they are not viable because under no circumstances you'll get permission to do that. For instance, still voice as a clinical data is not classified for use for patient screening or diagnosis or treatment anywhere in the policy. So now if anyone is trying to build an AI related product using voice based product, it's still whether I can use it is still hazy. So in that case, it's not a healthcare product to go into the consumer as a consumer product. So now these questions are like for you have hundreds of ideas on AI, then you have to go looking through different lenses. So one of the lenses is just a minute, I'm having a class. So you have to look into the regulatory basics. You have to see whether the business model is viable. Will the people accept it? Will people, you have an AI related idea, and can I take it to the market is a huge question that you need to answer. Most of the time you will find the product is mature, but the market is not mature. So in this invent stage is where a majority of your thinking and research aspect, a lot of funding, a lot of money that you get for R&D goes into this aspect of it. So this is an important step. And this is how your pathway looks like. You have proof of concept, then you have prototype, then goes to the pilot stage and the minimum viable product stage. The same year you have proof of concept, prototype, pilot stage, and production stage. This is the pathway for your AI in healthcare. So any AI you're trying to build, this is the pathway. And now coming to the players, right? So I'm skipping this. The game, and I'm going to this. So these are the questions different stakeholders ask. The patient, any AI will any AI you take to the market, any artificial intelligence or any medical device put around an artificial intelligence, the patient would have this question: can I safely use this device or AI? Will it solve the problem that I'm facing? Is it safe? Is it secure? Is my data safe? How private is it? How private and confidential all these things are? So this is the first thing. Second thing, the relative of the patient will ask, can I trust this AI to cure my mother? Like the caregivers are most of the cases, it's a caregiver who pays. The caregiver of a patient is who will actually pay for your product. So they will ask, can I trust this AI to cure my mother? And the doctor will always ask this question, will my patient feel better? Will it enhance my practice? And normally the current trend is that a lot of doctors are scared that AI will replace them. So you need to address all those concerns when you're taking a product into the market related to AI and healthcare. And the payers are the insurance people. Insurance people, they normally come across like hundreds of AI related solutions per year. So in what way is your AI superior to that is the question that they will ask. And the regulatory bodies like FDA in USA, in India, you have CDSCO. They ask if it meets the standards. The marketing and sales people have a very straightforward question. How shall I sell this? The policymakers or otherwise the government people, they want to know what problem is it solving? Is it really solving a problem or creating more problems? And finally, the finance people will have this question on the cost and the return on investment. The resources, so we have data is the primary resource here. So we have data from disease registries, medical imaging, genome registries, clinical trials, pharmacy data, health claims, health wearables, electronic health records. So everything you have, when you move inside a hospital, you'll find like we have the data coming in from all possible sources, right? So another issue which we commonly face in healthcare is that already the healthcare professionals are dealing with a voluminous amount of data. They're seeing numbers, they're seeing images, they're seeing. So you have any typical doctor will be looking at prescriptions, will be looking at lab data, will be looking at radiology data, and he will also be measuring vitals. There'll be numbers, there'll be text, there'll be images. And moving forward, there are like if it's going to be in teleconsultation, it's again voice comes into play, video comes into play. Now imagine every patient is generating terabytes of data to a doctor. So a doctor is already overloaded with data. So now, as an AI specialist, so as tech people, it's a challenge whether we are going to add to the existing cognitive burden of reading numbers or are we going to reduce it. So it's a wise approach is where you try to reduce it. The more you reduce it, better are your chances of your product being accepted. So we get data from all possible sources. Now the patients are coming to us with their wristwatch data. They're coming up with their wristwatches. They come and tell like this is what my heart rate is. So earlier you come to our clinic, a doctor will have an ECG measuring your heart. We have an ECG machine that measures how your heart is functioning. Okay, but now patients are coming with their smart watches that are where they measure their ECG on a daily basis. So they come and give us like 2 months of data. This is how my ECG has been the last 2 months. That is quite overwhelming. So these are the challenges we are facing. But then we are also, in spite of that, there's voluminous amount of data that's coming into the healthcare sector on a daily basis, right? And more than that, there are data from apps, there are data from social media, there are also data coming in from their people counting the number of steps. So everything is coming into play today. So a doctor, the clinical decision making was pretty simple, at 15 or 20 years back. Today, the clinical decision making is quite challenging. On top of that, patients are also over-informed about a disease or a condition. They have multiple sources to go and validate an information, bring in more information. A lot of things are misinformation. So the playing field is completely different today when it comes to healthcare, and where data plays the major role everywhere. Now coming to the rules of the game. So the rules of the game are either, some of the rules are either you have explicit rules or implicit rules, or you have formal rules or informal rules. So in this explicit or implicit or formal informal rules, some of them are overall rules which applies to the entire healthcare sector or entire domain. It fits into the entire domain. Some of the things are level specific rules. If we go back to the previous slide, you have, right, we have certain different levels. See, some of the levels applies to the proof of concept stage. Some of the level rules applies to the prototype. Some rules apply to the pilot stage. Some levels apply to the minimum viable product stage, right? Some levels, no, some rules are very specific to their funding approaches. Some rules are very specific to the intellectual property basics. So you have enormous number of rules governing your innovation in healthcare using AI. Some are explicitly stated rules, some are formal rules, some are not explicitly stated, some are implicit. Like a patient coming to you to us for a consultation, we don't take an explicit consent because it's implied consent, right? Consent plays a major role. We have ethics plays a major role. There are moral concerns regarding patient data, right? Data related to cancer, data related to HIV status, data related to gender and identity disorders, data related to psychiatric disorders. So some of the rules are not explicitly stated, but then it is a duty of a doctor to protect the privacy of the patient because that's how it is morally the profession is. So this is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, you also have formal rules that has been formally through any policy, or you have certain acts protecting them. There are also informal rules, right? But irrespective of the entire aspect of this rules is that any problem, anyone can sue the company, the company that comes up with the AI, or the person who builds the AI, or the doctor. So all are answerable, all are responsible. So the biggest challenge when it comes to AI, and if you look into the AI in other domain, the penetration has been easy, scaling up has been easy, because the reason the rules are not this tough when it comes to other domains. Say for instance, automobile industry. We don't have so many rules governing any use of AI in automobile industry. Say for example, social media, or food delivery apps, or platform for cab aggregators. You don't have these many rules. The general business rules apply, general company rules apply, the employee rules, labor laws apply. But when it comes to healthcare, beyond all these things, the consumers become patients, not just patients, patient caregivers, and not just that. You also have doctors as patients. You also have hospital as consumers. So the definition of a consumer changes here. You have a doctor, you have a patient, you have a caregiver, you have hospitals, you have medical colleges, you have laboratories. Most of the time, these people they act both as consumer, or they can also they're both on they are also on the supply side, they're also on the demand side. So this type of classification is very challenging and quite hazy. That is why the rules are extremely tough at every level. You'll find there are a lot of legal people. You'll find when an AI in healthcare, any startup with AI in healthcare, the tech and R&D team will be very small, but the legal and the documentation team will be the regulatory team will be a bigger team compared to the actual team that builds the product, because you need to go according to the rules, and you need different people on board. And this is the deciding factor for any AI in healthcare. And for US, these are the different standards that we have. We have a standard called as FTC proof for AI claims, bias, and biometrics. You have HHS for privacy or high trust verification. We have FDA SAMD. SAMD is like software as a medical device. So another important challenge is the classification of AI as what? Is it a device? If it's going to be, see, AI as a standalone product cannot work, cannot be regulated. So AI should go with the medical device, where AI is a software and you have a hardware. Or AI should be classified as a software as a medical device, where AI is working on the diagnostic or screening or diagnosis aspect of it. So this classification is important to understand. And then we have a set of rules for good practice for AI. And you need to work the FDA SAMD also regulate when you modified algorithms or generating real world evidence. And we have ISO 13485 for medical devices for quality management, and ISO IEC JTC for AI ML standards, and IEEE standards for ethics of intelligent systems, and OECD collaboration for policies and standards development. These are the basic regulation. Okay, and this is the most extensive standards in clinical research process, where you will find there are two aspects of it: the non-clinical aspect of the clinical aspect of it. For each and every type of data, there is a standard to maintain. I'm not going into the detail of it. I'm going to go into just one thing which might be very important for you. One is SDTM and ADAM. So SDTM, I'm going to ask. So SDTM is the SDTM. See, for example, if you are having clinical data, so how do you really present or record the data inside an Excel sheet? There is a particular format for it. So we have a model, SDTM model, for tabulations for study data, just for tabulation. How should a data look inside a table? So how will you name that table? How will you name the headers? So these all fall under SDTM. And now when I try to take the data for analysis, so we have ADAM model, analysis data model, where any data, clinical data that's going to be analyzed either for AI or not for statistical purposes or for anything for that matter, it has to follow the ADAM format. So again, so that's where you have all pharma companies, they have a specific role called as clinical data scientist. So whose job is to ensure they have compliance with SDTM and ADAM standards. Just for data collection, we have C- standards, just for collection. If I'm going to collect data from a wearable wristwatch, okay, for diagnosis purposes, then I have to use C- standards. For planning, I have to use PRM standards. The terms that I'm going to use, right? So you will find people talking about sugar, diabetes, or type 2 diabetes. So we don't have multiple nomenclature for the same disease. We use only one nomenclature that comes under CT. So when I'm trying to transfer data from one person to another, so like one system to another, for either for data collection or analysis or regulatory, everything has its own data exchange standards. If I'm going to put the data in a clinical trial registry, then it has its own standards. Long story short, like you have different rules for the regulation and standard, these are the data specific rules for AI in healthcare. The reason why none of the AI, most of the AI in healthcare, either they fail or they change their business model after starting for a few years, because it's very hard to fit it to the standards. Because it's quite challenging, because you need to have a proper clinical data science team that they ensure compliance to all these things, which is a time consuming process, lot of efforts. Any mistake here, you are liable to answer. So you have there is a chance of you getting sued. So this is an important aspect of clinical data that needs to be understood. And another thing is regarding digital data, digital clinical data. We have a particular document called as 21 CFR Part 11 that deals with electronic records, electronic signatures, audit trials, digital data access 24/7, backup and restore, and secure data storage. So this is the compliance that we need to be ensured. So any AI startup, the first question the regulatory people will ask, is it 21 CFR Part 11 compliant? Right. So I have been to a lot of startups for auditing, where you ask them, the next question will be, what is 21 CFR? See, if we are working with AI in healthcare, it is the responsibility of the project people or the startup people or the companies or the businesses, whoever it may be. They should be aware that 21 CFR Part 11 exists for digital data, and this is a mandatory mandatory standard compliance to ensure. So the summary of it, like we have seen the level playing field, we have seen the levels, we have seen the stakeholders, we have seen the resources and the rules. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Any questions so far? No, sir. Okay. Someone raised their hand. Venkatesh Guru, any question? Okay. Fine. Okay. So let us go to the. Like I said, in this entire AI and healthcare, clinical data plays the major role, the deciding factor. What decides the AI in healthcare or clinical, the deciding factors is always the resource, which is the clinical data. So clinical data science and AI is what we'll be focusing on now. So these are the various steps. One is, how do you acquire the data and how are you managing the data, how you are going to retrieve the data and work on it, and finally how do you analyze and present and the applications that it's going to use. So people who are working on the startups or project, they're more focused on the application aspect of it, right? So they're more focused on, I'm going to create an app that's going to do this. Can it do? Yes, it can do, but then where will your data come from? Who will give you the data? How will you ensure compliance? Right? There are so many rules. What if someone sues you for data privacy and confidentiality? So all these questions are to be answered before you start with the application. So normally you'll find a lot of people having an app. They'll have an app that will measure this, measure that. This is going to be your input. This is going to be output. Everything is fine, but everything starts with your data acquisition. So this is the big picture. In data acquisition, you should be very clear with the sources of data. So who is going to give you a particular data? One set of data a patient will give. One set of data the medical devices will give. One set of data the radiologist will give, the X-rays, ECG. One set of data the caregiver will give. And some data comes from the genome registries. Like we saw, there is the source of data, right? So where is your source of data is going? Is it from a disease registry? Is it from medical imaging? Is it from the genome registries? Is it coming from the clinical trials or from the pharmacy or health claims, health wearables, or electronic health records? So these are the different sources of data we have, and then the types of data. So like I said, a typical doctor on a daily basis, he'll be dealing with text, numbers. Now we are dealing with voice, videos, photographs, images, and the images are of different types. Some are, if you take dermatology, we have we have skin images, okay. But then when you go to radiology, the images are in X-ray film, CT film, or MRI films. Or if you take for pathology, we have slides. So we have different types of data, and if you take retina, we have fundus examination images. So we have different types of data coming in inside the healthcare domain, and the problem is this is not uniform. It's like if you take one hospital and I build a model for that hospital, and I go to the other hospital, the two hospitals will not be the same. This is the condition, or even inside a government hospital, one government hospital to another, the source and types of data, is it same? No, it's not same. The another problem, so that is the thing. So in India, if you look, the banking sector, it's uniform, right? The type of data that you take from a data perspective, it is uniform between private banks and nationalized banks, small banks, large banks, anything. If you take the banking sector, that is one normalized, the normalization of data. That's one uniform way of collecting data, looking at data, and analyzing data. Okay, that is about the banking sector. But when you come to a healthcare sector, you go to any the smallest unit of a healthcare sector is a clinic, where there's one doctor seeing one patient inside one simple cubicle. Now, will be here the data that's being collected, the format that's being collected, the source, the type will be completely different. Now you move When I put a similar cubicle next to the doctor, you have two cubicles, but two doctors are seeing two different patients. The data that's going to be generated is going to be completely varied. So this variety of data, the inconsistency of data is the biggest challenge in with clinical data, where most of the data that comes out is unstructured. So even if it's going to be an unstructured data, someone structures it, then you build a model and take it to the market, and you deploy an AI model, because the models that are being built with real-time data, that the models have to know, the predictive modeling they have to do will be completely different. So this is why a lot of predictive models, when start on in bench, when it's being tested, it works so well. But when it actually goes into the market, the product fails because the accuracy falls, the precision falls, the other metrics do not perform well, mainly because patient to patient, use case to use case, there are differences. So how do we account for these differences is the biggest challenge. At this point of time, we have the human in the loop model, where a doctor or any other healthcare professional still is there in the loop, so that the AI is not a standalone product. Okay. So, but when it goes to, well, I say I'm comparing it with the banking sector. So in banking sector, let us say someone misuses my credit card. I can immediately send an SMS and block that credit card, right? As simple as that. But when it comes to healthcare, I can't send a simple SMS for medicine. I can't send one SMS for medicine and medicines being delivered, right? We need a prescription, right? So we need prescription, we need validation. Still, we are not at a stage where the patients can, they can just work with an AI where they type in symptoms, get their diagnosis done, get their treatment, customized. But where do we really stand is on a scale to 0 to 100, we are somewhere in 10, but we're slowly moving towards that. Maybe another 15 to 20 years, this might be a reality where no patients are really meeting the doctors, where there is an absolute need to meet the doctors, right? So coming back to this, the data sources and types, data acquisition plays the major role and the deciding role on how this clinical, the data science works. The second aspect is the data management practices. Where do you store data? How do you store data is important. For instance, for any clinical trial, we are supposed to store data as hard copies under lock and key. So we have a huge drawer or a chest or a suitcase where all the medical clinical data related to vaccine studies we store and keep for 5 to 7 years till all these regulatory approvals are completed. So there are, when it comes to digital data, the data storage practices, there are specific rules for data storage. Then how do you classify data? How do you verify data? How do you validate data? How do you update data? And how do you standardize data? So for each and every step, you have rules. Like I showed you here, all these are each all these steps fit into here: the data storage, data management, and then data retrieval, and how data should be verified, validated, updated, everything for each and every step. So you have clinical data standards, and also you have IT standards and other compliance standards. Then you also have 21 CFR Part 11 compliance, and then the data analysis is the steps are like you have the raw data preparation. So this is a very common thing. If you are a data scientist, all these are the regular thing, like where you prepare the data, process the data, come up with an analysis plan, draft a statistical analysis plan, and finally build a machine learning model. And two important things that we'll be touching upon is about digital phenotyping and CDSS. So the unique feature of clinical data science. What is the unique feature? In what way clinical data differs from a data from a banking sector, or data from an automobile sector, data from any other sector? So we use two advanced concepts. One is the digital phenotyping. So when you have an AI specialist in healthcare, so we understand the person who is an AI specialist in healthcare is beyond machine learning algorithms. He knows digital phenotyping, and also he can build a CDSS. CDSS is the advanced, the end point. Where will I know AI is mature? Where will I, what is the ultimate product we can provide for AI in healthcare? Is the CDSS, Clinical Decision Support System. Okay, so we'll be looking into that CDSS in some time. And what are the common applications today? We are using for detection and diagnosis, we're using for prognosis, treatment and support, we are using for research, we are using for public health applications and others. And these are the sources and types of data. So the sources are, you have electronic medical records, electronic health records, you have laboratory information management system, and research information systems, and PACS. So PACS is the picture archived computer systems, and you have mobile apps, you have social media, you have IoT, and the types of data, you have tabular data, you have images and videos, you have natural language, you have time series data. These are the common 4 types of data. And like I said, the data standardization, so definition of data elements is important, and the data interchange formats are important, the terminologies and the knowledge representation. And this is our health informatics standards life cycle. So we have the base standards based on which we build use case based standards. Like any healthcare domain will have base standards, but when you take cancer, they have their own standards, and those standards differ between different types of cancer. So breast cancer, it will be different. Okay, and if you have abdominal cancer, it will be different. So the different cancer or blood cancer, it will be quite different. So that you have use case based standard sets, and then you do assurance and testing with those standards. You do live deployment, feedback and maintenance. In between, we are also working on the tooling and education of these standards and the forums and monitoring. So, and these are the important medical data standards. I'm just so far these are the commonly used. So it's not that I can choose any one of this or 2 of this. No, it is like when you're working with clinical data, when someone says the standards are maintained, we understand like all the standards are in place, or this data meets all the standards. So HL7 standards is a very common one. And ISO, I think people are aware of this ISO standards. And for medical imaging, we have DICOM standards. For open electronic health records, we have open EHR standards. And SNOMED CT is the terminology related standards. And for classification of diseases, we have ICD standards. And for primary care classification, we have ICPC standards. So we have enormous number of standards. So clinical data scientist is someone who understands all the standards, and it's quite a vast a domain to master. Like we saw this previously also. These are the other set of, see, these standards are different. Okay, these are all completely related to clinical medical digital data. These are all completely related to how this data is going to be collected, organized and analyzed. That's how your operational workflow looks in a typical environment where AI and clinical data are involved. A typical environment will be like this. And where I want to draw your attention is you're combining data from different sources, like synthetic data. So we in our topic would have noticed like how do you work with the synthetic data, how do you synthesize data. So we do something called as multi-model data analytics. See, in a crude format, it is like this. Let us say a patient. One patient comes with a prescription, vital signs. A prescription is a text, vital signs is in numbers. He also has X-ray ECG. X-ray is ECG is a biomedical signal, and X-ray is an image. And now these are different data, different types, different sources. So how do I synthesize a patient's information from this? Say, for instance, a doctor, for example, the cognitively he'll be looking into the medical history, then you look into the vitals, you look into the different data, then you look into the different, he looks into the different data, and then finally looks into the X-ray ECG, and then he'll also take opinion from other doctors, and then finally he'll decide what type of treatment that has to be given. Okay, this was done by a doctor on a on a crude basis, for one person, two person. But when it comes to a voluminous number of patients, one doctor cannot crunch this much information, for 2,000, 3,000 patients per day. It's not possible. So that's where we have this concept of multimodal data analytics, where the same, for one patient, different data is being analyzed, and you come out with an actionable insight. So what a doctor has to do. So the concept is mature. Theoretically, it's mature. But when it comes to practical applications, we're still in the nascent stages. The multimodal data analytics, synthetic data, say from a theoretical point of view, from a research point of view, yes, it's good. But from a practical and applicable point of view, like let us say a hospital, how far is synthetic data is being used? Say no, it's not being used. It's not possible to build an AI at this point of time using synthetic data or using multimodal data analytics. So the moment you build multimodal data analytics, you fall into the category of CDSS, or the clinical decision support system. For store data, we have ISO 27001 as the, also you have country related standards. And coming to data analytics, see, you have raw data preparation, you have analysis plan, your biostats, machine learning, digital phenotyping, and CDSS. So any questions so far? Any questions on clinical data science standards? Am I audible? Yes, no.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, fine. Okay, I'll move forward. Okay. So in data analytics, coming to the data analytics part of it. So first step, what we do in clinical data, we always create a data dictionary that's called as metadata. And this is a very important document for us. So you'll find more than collecting data, we work on process data. There's like we have levels and levels of documentation process, which is quite time consuming, but then it's worth it because we are trying to build something in the long run that has to sustain. So we create a data dictionary first, and then create a working copy of the data set, and then clean the data, the working file. The original file we never touch. So original file will always be there. We always work on the copy of it. And finally, we create an analysis file, and we create intermediate data sets. So the analysis plan will typically look like this. So we have an analysis plan that answers the question in terms of what population, what intervention, what comparison, what outcomes, what is the description of the population, and what is the inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria. So how are, if there are different data sets, which data sets should I use? How are they merged? And what are the time series data? Like which time point should I use? Should I use the patient data till yesterday or last week, last year? And should I compare between last year and this year? So all these questions has to be answered, and the variables to be used in the analysis. So what are the variables that I need to, I'm going to include? Okay, and if I'm going to build a model, okay, what are they? How do the variables sit into this model? Okay, sit in this model, and whether it's a continuous model or a categorical model, and what are the models that? What are the variables that are confounders or effect modifiers, and how will these be analyzed? How will I deal with missing values? So one common issue is that inconsistency of medical data, right? There are medical data sets where even the age and gender is missing. So how do I deal with this? Should I exclude the person subject completely, or should I how do I add that value? So some cases we are fortunate enough to follow up a patient, call them up and tell them like, see, your data is missing, we want your data. But then that is in a very regulated clinical trial, it's possible. Okay. But when it comes to the regular when it comes to other data science and AI related projects, it's impossible to follow up with patients. And most of the times you don't even know from where the data has come from, especially when you're dealing with the data from variables. Then we need to come up with a plan for missing value treatment. Okay, what is the missing value? Okay, what is the missing value? How would the missing value will be addressed? So will you impute the missing value, or will you leave the missing value, or you leave the subject, or leave the row from analysis? So all these questions has to be drafted. All these answers has to be drafted in this analysis plan, and what analysis you'll be doing in which order, and the structuring of folders and files, and managing of file version control. So version control is, I'll give a typical example of how version control works here. So I start building an AI today. 5 years later, I submitted for regulatory approval. Someone from the government will want to know how the data look like on day one. Then I need to go and show them like version 1.2, 2.2, 3.2, 4.2, or 4.1.1. All these versions I need to have a proper documentation of. So like I said, when people are learning data science, clinical data science, outside the domain, they learn, okay, you have the clinical data, then you analyze, you come up with a model. What's so hard about it? The actual hard part is how do you comply to the standards, right? So these are all very important, managing files, managing folders, etc. And in any analysis plan, we also include this documentation. And this is a very common thing that we have when it comes to data science, depending on the variable type, whether if it's a numerical variable or a categorical variable. Numerical variable, you have continuous or discrete. In categorical, you have ordinal or nominal. And for biostatistics, we have the test depends on the what we are looking for. If we are looking for relationship between two variables, we use a correlation test or regression test. And if it's a parametric correlation, the variable, it's a parametric test. It's a it's a Pearson correlation test. If it's not parametric, it's a Spearman-Frank correlation test. And when it comes to the differences between two groups, there are two independent samples. If it's parametric, it's t-test. Non-parametric, it's man-Whitney u-test. With 3+ independent samples, it can be either parametric, can be ANOVA, non-parametric will be Pascal-Wallis. And two related samples is always paired t-test. The non-parametric companion is your Wilcoxon signed rank test. And the frequency data, we have chi-square, goodness of fit test, chi-square test for association, and Fisher's exact test. So in machine learning, you have supervised learning, unsupervised learning, semi-supervised learning, and reinforcement learning. And supervised learning, if it's going to be a continuous target variable, use regression. If it's a categorical target, it's classification. In unsupervised learning, you have clustering, you have your association, and again semi-supervised learning, you have classification or clustering, and reinforcement learning, classification or control. So all these the machine learning algorithms, you will understand how it works when you start working with real-time data sets, like classifying, clustering, trying to understand the cancer images. Okay, it find clusters and then classify them as cancerous images, non-cancerous images, or what is association. Okay, so all these people with this particular type of feature in X-ray suffered from pneumonia. Like in X-ray shows you pneumonic consolidation. So all these people with this type of particular opaque X-ray film, all these people had it associates with pneumonia. So you have different machine learning types. So depending on the use case, depending on the problem statement, depending on the types of data we have, we use. And this is the most important, two important things that I wanted to focus on is the digital phenotyping. So far what we have seen is a regular thing that that is commonly applicable to all the domains, data science, and you have AI, machine learning models. But what is so unique about healthcare domains data? What is it? What is that I can do? What is that I'm looking for? What is that all major companies who are investing into healthcare domain in AI are looking for? They're all trying to digitally phenotype a patient. So digital phenotyping is nothing but like, I'm profiling a patient clinically based on different data. So the data can be from different sources. Okay. So first we'll understand the different sources. Okay. One is from the patient. The other one is from regarding the patient from other sources. The data coming from the patient comes from the medical devices, from the wearables, social media, digital footprint, digital biomarkers, real world data. So real world data is nothing but where you go to hospital, you give data to a patient, to a doctor, etc., and the patient history. So everything comes under digital phenotyping. There's another thing called as deep phenotyping, where you collect data about a patient, but not from the patient directly, but from their omics, from the genetic, from the clinical data, other e-health records, biomedical data, and biological data. So you put these two things together, we get something called as deep digital phenotyping, where I'm going to collect data about one person in all possible direction. Let us assume a person named A. That I want to collect all possible data about that person A, okay, and that based on that data, I'm going to extract features and profile. See, I'm going to get billions of data points about that particular individual, a particular patient. If I'm going to collect data for 1 year, I'm going to have billions of data points. Now, how am I going to model this data? How am I going to crunch this data? What are the features I need to extract out from this data is what all this digital phenotyping is about. It's the most challenging domain. So inside clinical data science and clinical AI, the most challenging aspect is the digital phenotyping aspect of it, because you have billions of data points, and you want to crunch this billions of data points into 10 data points. Now, from billion to 10, how will you reduce it? So what will be the the feature selection techniques you'll be using? How will you crunch this data? So how will you do factor analysis out of this data, right? So all these things are the most challenging part, where you have new individual or a patient, and you have a DDP features, that is like deep digital phenotypic features, and then you create a progress card type of thing, and finally move to precision health. So precision health, the ultimate endpoint that the AI or clinical data science ultimate problem that AI can solve is this precision medicine problem, where today, if you take, for example, there are 100 people suffering from fever, all adults, without even considering their health status, without even considering their previous history, without even considering any other factors. The standard dosage is 500 mg. But in reality, some people will need only 200 mg. Some people might need only 250 mg. But on what basis will I customize this treatment? No one has. So this customization is known as precision medicine. And if I can also move a step further and prevent, for example, hey, I can tell, hey, Mr. X, you will be getting diabetes in next 6 years, considering your current lifestyle, current health records, current family history, genetics, etc. You need to change all these things. So this goes under precision prevention. And precision medicine is where I have a patient, I have someone who is suffering from fever, and considering every other factor, the patient needs only 275 grams of milligrams of paracetamol. So now I can just give 275 milligrams of paracetamol rather than pumping in 500 mg of paracetamol, right? So this is precision medicine and precision prevention. So the endpoint is this. We're looking at precision health. The backstory is digital phenotyping, and it all starts with digital clinical data. And today we work with the concept called as N of 1 trials and P4 med, that is precision medicine. So we have personalized, we have predictive, preventive, personalized, and participatory, where we are using a concept called as N of 1 trials. The previous concept is more of a sample size concept, where you take a population of 10,000 people, I choose some 100 people and study about their depression levels, and then I will extrapolate to the remaining 9,900 subjects. 9,900, yes, 9,900 subjects. But now we've come to a point where we're taking each and every subject and collecting as much data as possible and analyzing, profiling, and customizing. So this is known as N of 1 approach in clinical data science and clinical AI. And in digital phenotyping, the research, the sample size concept is N of 1, where each and every individual is considered like a population, and it's all data is being collected. And the next important thing is the clinical decision support system. Like when you go back here in precision health, what decides this? See, I have data. Between this data and this precision medicine, there is one gap which is being filled by the clinical decision support system. The ultimate aim of healthcare is to build a completely automated clinical decision support system without the human in the loop model. So all these things fit into this clinical decision support system. So your clinical data, your digital phenotyping, your precision medicine, your N of 1 approach. So what will I do with all these things? I'll make clinical decisions. It's known as clinical decision support system. The CDSS market is one of the fast growing market, and by 2028 we are expecting $2.4 billion. So there's a huge talent no gap in this. So if you're an engineer trying to understand that too many people in the AI and in data science, what is that one thing that I should specialize on? You should specialize on clinical decision support systems. You should specialize on P4 medicine. You should specialize on digital phenotyping, because at this point of time, there is an acute shortage of professionals, experts who can understand digital phenotyping, who can understand N of 1 trials, who can understand CDSS. So there are people who know CDSS separately. There are people who understand N of 1 separately. There are people who understand digital phenotyping separately. But is there one individual who can understand and work with all these three things? It's very rare, very, very less. And this is one skill that's being preferred by companies that are hiring engineers for AI in healthcare. These are different Python libraries. And any questions? Any questions? Okay, I'll share the PPT. Okay. Okay, we'll play a small game to revise what we did. Let's see how far you're able to get this. Am I still sharing my screen? Okay. See, we all discussed about stakeholder, right? So it's a small quiz on. So who will be possibly telling this? I have invented a medical device. I'm going to create an impact. Anyone? Anyone?
A research person or scientist.
Okay. So otherwise is the inventor. Okay. Good. How is this device superior to others? Who will ask this question? We already saw this. Think, just make a guess. No, anyone, right or wrong, so that I know that I'm audible. Hello, am I audible? I think people are typing in the chat box. Let's go. See, FDA, okay. Sales and distribution. No, it's not the FDA. Policy makers, good. Policy makers also ask this question. Who else will be asking? Okay, we'll come to that later. We'll revise. What about this? Does it meet the standards? Who will ask this? Whenever we talk about standards, we have only one big brother.
FDA.
FDA, that's perfect. How shall I sell this? Look at the smile on that face. Who will ask this question?
Sales and distribution.
Sales and distribution. Yeah, that's right. How about this? What problem is it solving? Someone already said the answer to it for the other one. Wait, some people will be typing. No one's typing. Okay. What problem is it solving? Who will sell? Who will tell this?
Mathematical problem, sir.
Policy
No.
makers.
Policy makers. Policy makers. Yes, policy makers, right. Will my patient feel better? Will it enhance my work? Who will have a patient?
Relative of the patient.
No. Will my
Doctor.
patient? Doctor.
Doctors.
Yeah. Relative of patient. Who will? Which relative of patient will say my patient? It should be either my mother, father, or someone. Okay. So it's a doctor, right? What about this? Can I safely use this? Who will ask this question? Can I use your AI to do diagnosis?
Patient.
Yes.
Patient.
Right. How much money will it cost, and what is the return on investment?
Finance.
Finance people, perfect. Whenever it's return on investment, it's finance. What about this? Can I trust this device to cure my mother? Cure my mother? Who will ask?
Relative of patient.
Relative of patient.
Good. So yeah. So these are the various questions. Always AI superiority is asked by the payers. Payers are insurance people. So currently, the landscape in India is not that everything is being covered by the insurance insurance companies, but we go to the Western countries, like everything comes under insurance. So the payers. So in India, if you're developing a product and you're taking it abroad, you will not be talking to the patient at all. You'll be talking only to the insurance companies, because they are the ones who's going to ultimately pay for this. Okay. So quickly recapping what we saw today: the applications in AI in healthcare, AI-driven diagnostics and synthetic data. What we saw, learning number one is find the right problem and find the right solution. That's point number one. Point number two is AI in healthcare is like a game where it has a field, it has different levels, it has different stakeholders, you have different rules and resources. So the healthcare domain is like this. It is a spectrum, and you have different levels. You need to identify, invent, and implement. And then you have different stakeholders. You have different stakeholders. And your primary resource is your data. And these are your rules. You have FDA rules, you have clinical data science rules, then you have 21 CFR part 11 rules. So, and then when it comes to clinical data science, so you need to know about the data is acquired, how it's managed, how it's analyzed and applied. In data acquisition, you need to know the sources and types of data. These are the data standardization steps. And in data standardization, we have health informatics standards lifecycle. These are the various standards we follow. And in data analytics, these are the steps. We always draft an analysis plan which needs to be submitted beforehand to the regulatory agencies, and these are the usual statistics, biostatistics, machine learning aspect algorithms. And finally, the key takeaway aspect of this talk, of this session, is the digital phenotyping aspect of it. So what are we trying to achieve? We are all trying to do digital phenotyping using N-of-1 approach for precision medicine, and finally build a CDSS. The day I have a CDSS without human in the loop model is where I know AI in healthcare is mature. This is the market. And finally, from healthcare, finally from a career perspective, someone is interested in the healthcare domain, but then trying to understand, what is that I need to specialize on, or any PhD scholar, or if any professors like who are trying to look into the healthcare and AI market. Please, these are the areas that has lot of things to do. You have a lot of these forum is totally open. There are people doing digital phenotyping are very less, who are working on N-of trials are even lesser, CDSS much more lesser. At this point of time, we have a basic CDSS that sends you alerts, reminders, mails. When you book an appointment inside any corporate hospital, that send you an alert or reminder. That's a very basic CDSS. We're looking for advanced CDSS that helps you with the diagnosis. And finally, I would like to conclude with this. So ultimate goal of AI in healthcare is how we are going to be human in the age of artificial intelligence. And questions, I'm open for questions now. Patient, related. I'm sorry, the people who typed and I missed, I'm so sorry. Payers, doctors. Questions?
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sir, can you tell me that what are its applications for the patients basically? You told each and everything, doctors and medicals. So
Okay.
how it is useful for patients?
Okay.
Dr.
So for
Brahmpal Singh,
patients,
please.
okay. So patients, one of the major the problem is like the waiting time, right? Say for some of the diseases, you don't really have to wait that long to meet a doctor. So you can cut down the waiting time drastically. Okay. And second thing, the cost aspect of it, right? See, there are two problems. One is missed diagnosis. The patient is having a disease, but then people did not really diagnose it accurately, right? That's missed diagnosis. Another one is over-diagnosis, where the disease doesn't exist, but still people are being branded as ADHD. People are being diagnosed with depression, but there's no depression. Okay, and also you have misdiagnosis, and misdiagnosis where misdiagnosis is where people are suffering from one issue, but then it is being classified under a different problem statement altogether, right? As a different medical issue altogether. So from a patient perspective, coming to an accurate diagnosis is what the patient wants. They don't want overdiagnosis, they don't want underdiagnosis, they don't want missed diagnosis, or they don't want misdiagnosis. So they want an accurate diagnosis at the right time. And you'll find the patients telling you that I moved from one doctor to, they have this doctor shopping concept. They go from one doctor to another, one patient, one hospital to another, one scan center to another. Finally, the third or fourth doctor comes and identifies that, no, you should have identified this as 3 months back. Now it has come to stage 3 or stage 4 cancer. So these are the problems AI is definitely bound to solve, because this waiting time, this unnecessary running between hospitals, and all these diagnosis related issues. So patient will be benefited in this aspect. And the second is from the cost aspect as well. So the time, the lesser hospitals you visit, the lesser tests you take, it also reflects on the cost. And the third thing is the mental aspect, or say mentally the cognitive burden for the patient. Every time you are inside a hospital taking test, it puts an emotional and mental burden. The mental burden on the patient and the emotional burden on the caregivers. So this holistically AI is going to solve lot of issues. Either at a very at a very explicitly it may solve, but then implicitly reducing the cost, financial burden, it's going to be useful in the long run for the patients. The ultimate beneficiary is the patient. That's why we have all the regulatory bodies trying to understand who is going to be benefited. If the patient is benefited, you get an S for your AI.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for your questions.
Any other queries from the participants side?
Sir, about digital phenotyping.
Yes, ma'am.
We told about the data gathering, right? In case if it is not accurate, so what will happen?
No,
Because
that
the
is
data,
what is actually the sorry, ma'am.
no, we are gathering the data based on that only we will decide, right?
Yes, yes.
So the data gathering may be in person or through smartphones and all.
Yes.
So in case through active data gathering, through active, if the data is not perfect, and based on that we are deciding something.
Yes.
So what will be the consequences, sir?
The model will be inaccurate, ma'am. There will be a lot of mistakes. So that is the current issue we are facing, right? We build a model on bench. The accuracy is quite good. Then when you deploy it in the real world, the accuracy drops drastically. So how do we counter this problem? Either we try to collect data as accurate as possible. If it's not possible, we'll have to put human in the loop. Now
Then
we are
it will be a drawback, right?
No, that is a drawback, ma'am. That's the thing I'm emphasizing, that still we are very immature with the data acquisition itself with when it comes to medical data. So like we don't have a national registry at all, right? No one knows in our country how many patients have attended the OPD department across the country in different private or public institutions. No one has the data. So that is the challenge, right? So this challenge has to be addressed at a much higher level, at the policy level. A policy has to be brought in where medical data should be regularized. Only then all these issues will be sorted out. So till then, how do we really handle this? How are we handling this now? We are still having a human in the loop model. So to counter all these issues. So yeah, so your question is the accuracy will drop. So how do I still manage with that, is where we have this human in the loop model.
But people still use a smartphone to check their BP, all those things. So is it
Yes, ma'am.
advisable?
Yeah, that is some of these are not life-threatening situations, right? See, checking BP, checking heart rate, and so we classify as emergency and non-emergency conditions, right? So let us say it's a non-emergency condition. If there is a missed diagnosis or misdiagnosis, it's not going to affect the patient in any long run. Say, for example, if your sugar level is 140, random is 140 or 300. See, this is not 140 or 300. It's not life-threatening. But if your AI is going to miss a heart rate that is 20 beats per minute, then that is life-threatening, right? The consequences are we are going to lose a patient's life. So normally, how we classify is the mistake that an AI is going to make. Is it going to be life-threatening? Is it endangering someone's life? Then it's a very serious issue. But if it is not, it's a non-emergency condition, not life-threatening, it's a data point that I can ignore, then it is not, we can still use that AI for experimental purposes. Did I answer your question, ma'am?
On that. Hello, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
As an Nagarajan here, and
Yes, sir.
And your company focuses on what type of products, sir? Deep Medicine Lab.
We're working completely on healthcare related products. One is on the we work on the EMR, EHR aspect of it. Any healthcare related AI we build and give.
Okay, sir.
So say for an hospital wants to digitize their records, we build and give. But my core product, something my own invention is I've built tech that detects Alzheimer's, dementia, depression, and Parkinson's using voice. So that is still not, we are not ready for the market. So that is our core invention which we are working on. But otherwise, we are helping hospitals digitize their work, or we're helping tech people build AI related products in healthcare, etc.
Okay, sir. So any other queries from participant side?
If you're done with this, can we close the call, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So I request Asha to conclude the session.
Thank you, sir, for delivering an insightful session. Your expertise and engaging presentation have provided us with valuable knowledge and inspiration for future innovations. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thanks to all the participants.
Okay, thank you, Arun, sir, for the wonderful
Thank
session.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So all the participants are requested to join tomorrow's session at 10:30 a.m. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.